Hi, I'm Mike Brofman. I'm the Artistic Director of Brooklyn Art Song Society, and welcome to the 4th episode of Song and Wine, or I guess today it's going to be Song and Sobriety, because I'm about to go play a concert of the works of the person sitting to my left, Libby Larsen, one of the great living American composers, and I'm really happy that she's here with me today. So that's why we don't have wine.
Rats.
Yes. But hopefully you'll forgive us, and I think hopefully the more interesting thing of watching this is the song part and not just two random people drinking wine. We're about to go play our In Context concert, which is we always have a living composer we pick every year, and we perform their works alongside standard repertoire, and we've come up with a really great program. I wish that this would be airing a little bit before, but next year you should come to the In Context concert. My first question for you is, this question sort of starts with a little speech that I feel like every composer of art song has a sort of overarching logic behind how they pick their texts. You know, something that connects all their, and then the examples that I thought of is, you know, Schubert sort of picked song texts that he had a personal relationship. He picked music that he either just liked the poetry, or it was his friends. And then someone like Hugo Wolf, his logic was, if he picked a poem to set to music, it was like, this is an endorsement that this is good poetry. And then someone like Brahms actually did the opposite. He was very well read and poetically, but he purposely chose what he thought was sort of second-rate poetry, because he thought first-rate poetry didn't need music added to it. Second-rate poetry, you need something to make it more interesting, and that's what the music is for. So if you had to say what your overarching, why you pick texts, if there's some connecting force, or if there's no connecting force, what would you say?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I read a lot of poetry, but I also read a lot of prose, because I set both poetry and prose for art song. The texts that really take my heart, you know, generally are texts that they're almost first person. You know, there's not much frame around them. It's as if there is a person that wants to be musicalized coming through the texts.
Yeah, I can see that a lot. You know, just thinking about the works tonight, I think something that sort of connects them is giving voices to people who kind of otherwise wouldn't have a voice. As a sort of and not necessarily, I don't mean that in like a political way almost, because you know, the last piece, Peculiar Case Dr. H.H. Holmes, it's, you know, you're not endorsing him as a person, but he's someone who is sort of in the shadows, and that side of him, you're making it come out in a way that there's no other way to make it come out. And you know, and also, you know, Emily Dickinson, which is from Chinese Paradise, she was a very recluse, kind of insular person, and poetry was her way of sort of reaching out to the world.
Absolutely, that's absolutely right. And then the last words of the Wives of Henry VIII. It's the same thing. Is that that the words for actually all the pieces tonight, Holmes and Dickinson and the Queens, they are brilliant words, but they become more brilliant when they're musicalized. Does that make sense to you? Yeah,
there's something about it's interesting, and this is a tangential question, but what do you think about the challenges of setting poetry versus prose? Because each have I find it very hard to with prose. There's not a natural, you know, beauty or rhythm to the language, and you have to sort of work around that to make it musical, as it were. They're
very different for me. Prose, you're right. You have to. I look when I'm making a prose song. You know, I look for vowel rhymes, in rhymes. You know, things that suggest duration. You know, you can rhyme vowels by the way you construct them melodically or duration. And in a way, I have more collaboration with prose than I do with poetry. Because the poetry, especially really fine poetry, which I like to work with, poems that are, there are some poems that are too strong to set. But I find the challenge of working with a poem that is a brilliant poem challenges me as a composer to
Yeah.
try to enhance the rigor of the poet.
Yeah, it's very sort of like Brahms. He had this, like you said, he didn't want to set great poetry. He thought it sort of stands on its own.
Right.
And there is an element of setting poetry of you are adding something to it. You can't not be adding something to it in a fundamental way. And is there something that needs to be added? And is there something that can be added successfully? Mm-hmm. And I think because it's always, when you hear a great, setting of any poem, there's a feeling of inevitability. There's a feeling like that's the only way that this poem could possibly be set.
Yes.
And in fact, going back to another composer just mentioned, Wolf, when he set something that another composer had already set, he was considering it like an affront to them, like an insult. It was like, you didn't set this right. This is how it should be set.
Really?
And that was, he would set. So he only reset. He reset a lot of poetry that Brahms wrote.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because he didn't like Brahms, and he thought Brahms wasn't getting it right.
Yeah.
And not that much else that Schubert or Schumann, or maybe I think it was one poem that Schumann wrote, but it was set. It was from something from the Spanish songbook. Is something but it was in that quartet thing, the Schumann Spanish songbook. That is not his most inspired work or something like that. It's Bedeck mich mit Blumen.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, so I'm trying to remember.
No, we were just talking about the rigors of poetry.
Yeah, and so it is. And I always felt like I remember my one foray into composition is in some class in college. I had to write I had to take some Ausschreibung Dinge or some text that was iconic poem. No, it was a Schubert song, so I think it was Du bist du Ruhe. Yeah. Oh. Which is and you had to reset the poem yourself. And I just the only thing that I completely failed at forget about conveying the meaning or the essence of the text. Right. I just couldn't get the right emphasis on the right syllable.
Oh, sure.
I just couldn't get it so that, and you only realize, I think that just having a sentence, especially in a language when it's in English and people will understand it, a sentence come out with the same emphasis on the words and the way that someone would conceivably speak it and make it not just that's all you're slavishly doing to not, to make it make sense. It's a real challenge, and it's sort of like oxygen. You only notice it in a song when it's not there.
It's true. And when the texts are set well, it feels like it's the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do.
Exactly. Which is the most natural segue in the world to my next question, so I'm going to take advantage of that. What do you think is the role of text painting in your music, or in a broader, so the idea of making the music either reflect what's going on with the words?
Right.
What is your end in doing that? And I think actually my suspicion is that it's several, because I feel like in becoming familiar with several of the work, I feel like it's a different thing in, say, Chanting to Paradise as it is in Donald Oje, just to give the piece that I'm performing, or just to the other, how it has, because especially because Chanting Paradise is poetry with and then something like the peculiar case of Dr. Jones is just prose, and that changes it too. But what do you think of that?
I think in general, text painting has to be handled quite skillfully.
Yes.
Same as a book illustrator. Is that a fine illustration that illuminates the metaphor of the text or the story. That gives you something more than is there. But a bad illustration when it detracts.
It's just a picture.
It's just a picture.
I actually made this point in the last conversation with pianist Jonathan, where if you just sort of slavishly take a poem, and whenever they say the word high, make it the high note, whenever they say the word low, make it the low note, and just without any thought of what is it, the context of the poetry or what's going on, or trying to create a mood, it's going to be a very bad song.
Yeah.
So it's it's in a way that's sort of proof in and of itself that text painting can't be an end to itself.
Oh, no.
It can't just be an intellectual exercise.
No, unless you're writing a madrigal, where that is the exercise.
Yeah.
But no. So, and it's different kind of, it's, with each piece, I think carefully about what text painting is available.
Yeah.
So with the Dickinson songs, there's no overt.
Yeah.
No overt text painting on the page.
Yeah.
No, the painting really is how she treats her vowels.
Yeah.
Each
Like, for
poem.
example, in that, one thing I noticed, this is because I was thinking about it, the first words, bind me,
Yeah.
that are sung, as I read in your program notes,
Yeah.
it's the idea that they're bound by the rests on the page, because there's a whole bunch of rests on either side of them.
Yes.
And on a certain way, I, as a performer, will see that. It's very hard for me, to convey that to an audience, and to have it, and I would, without your program notes, I wouldn't imagine that many, even very literate audience members would think it, and go, oh, there's rests on either side of the word binding. It's like, but they don't, and they shouldn't be thinking that way.
No.
Because that's just sort of pedantic and literal, and it doesn't help you to get put in a mood. But, and then I said, well, what's the point of it? And I think it's to make me as a performer think about the mood and the character of the piece. And then I don't want people to walk away going like, oh, that, there was that metaphor with the letter I that wanted me to go like, oh, there was that feeling of spaciousness, the feeling of something that is bound and becomes free.
And becomes free, yes.
Yeah. And so in that way, like, another example I thought of it is there's a Wolf song, that's one of my favorite Wolf songs from the Italian songbook, that's the moon has a complaint. And the text of the song is basically, the moon has a complaint that 2 stars are missing from the sky. And he doesn't know where it is, and then it looks into your eyes and sees that you've stolen the moon, that's your starlight.
Yeah.
And in the very first line, it's the German escapes me, my German pronunciation is horrible anyways, but it's, the moon has raised a complaint, and hinab is raised, and because of German grammar, the last word of raised. And on that word, hinab, instead of going up, it drops a knife in the voice part. And you go, why is it doing that? And I think the reason why is not because of a tone painting, is because the song, Wolf wants it to be a little bit coy, a little bit like, a little bit like, and if you just play, you could play the music the way it's written very seriously and somberly. But I think he wants it to be kind of sweet and a little bit cloying. And so that tone painting has nothing to do with the literal meaning of the words. It has to do with giving you a sense of what the character should be.
That's right.
So that's
right. That to me that's brilliant tone painting, and that's and that's the kind of tone painting I use most.
Yeah.
Then there are other instances where, like in Don Lo, where she is singing that she gave a whistle, and definitely, it's a whistle, and then she says, "I heard nothing but the bleating."
And then it bleeds.
And that's much more madrigalesque.
And that's also a much more literal poem than the.
Oh yes.
That poem is really there's no metaphor to that. It's a person telling an actual thing that's happening to the experience.
Yes, that's right.
So that actually, in a certain way, fits the mood. It's of this person recalling certain memories, and they're them seeing these images themselves.
Yes, it's true.
So it makes sense in that.
And this person is desperate. And not necessarily literate. So in her life. And it's interesting. No, she's not literate. And I think instinctively, I was trying to also portray that she was using whatever she could to get her point across, and none of it was subtle.
Yeah, exactly. The high C sharp on the word God. It gets a lot of great things. It's not subtle.
It's not subtle.
But
it's also not understandable.
But I think that's almost the point, because it's like the breakdown of. It's like she's not telling everyone, you've taken God. He took God from me too. She's like breaking down
completely.
And it's not to convey it to a listener. It's to experience it herself. Which is interesting.
Yes.
And that's the whole other can of worms. So my final question on my sheet is, I just noticed in a lot of your music that I'm performing, and a lot in general, ostinatos are sort of very constant. I think either rhythmical, that there's a constant rhythmic pulse that's going on, or harmonic, like, you know, don't just stays on one sort of rhythmic pattern, harmonic pattern for long periods of time. The sort of ostinato in the last song, Chanting to Paradise,
right,
and in the second, in This Brief Life, you know, the second song.
yes.
There's always just, so why do you choose ostinatos so much? Not that it's not, that wasn't a judgment thing, but what is it that keeps bringing you back to it?
I'm going to try to tackle this, because I do read ostinatos, and it has to do with the perception that each of us is a moment of time suspended in infinity. You know, that I get from Juana de la Cruz.
Yeah.
You know, but that each of our lives, and each or translated, each moment that we present ourselves is really a moment that flows on top of something that flows infinitely.
Yeah.
And so many of the ostinatos that I create are really about about the alpha and the omega. We're alpha and we're omega.
That's
but
true, at the beginning of one.
Yeah.
A lot of these ostinatos, you know, where they start and where they end is arbitrary, and is in the sense that it could be 10 measures long, it could be 10 measures shorter.
Yeah.
And it's not like a melody where, like, you know, you go with a melody, you know, there's a clear beginning, middle, and end to a melody, and it has to, you know, and there's that shape. And you can have a shape of a melody over an ostinato, but the ostinato itself, and a lot of the songs feel like they're not starting, they're like coming in from something that's like, I think especially, you know, in This Short Life, that ostinato really feels like it's been going on for like ever before.
Forever. Yeah.
And hypothetically, it could just keep going after it's something that stops it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, and that is, you know, that we have the air and a bird, and it's really infinity. I've always been fascinated with infinity. I got turned on to it in two ways. Yeah. One, I was scared into it as a Catholic child taught by nuns. You know, this idea of forever. You know, but I got really taken with zero in new math in 6th grade. Yeah. And I just fell in love with the idea that zero is nothing and everything. Yeah. And ever since. Ever since, I just feel like it's always there, and we're just riding on it. Yeah,
and I mean, you know, I feel like the first composer to use ostinatos in this way is Schubert.
Yes.
In art song specifically, and I think the reason why is one, it can serve as a neutral platform to have something else going on top of it, and in that way, it's sort of like the infinite. You know, it's always the you know, river is flowing, and it's like the river was flowing before the song and after the song. Yeah. And the other thing, just sort of more simple compositional point of view, I always find with ostinatos, it's a way to be more radical with other elements, and then keep something constant so that there's something for the listener to hold on to. You could, I think, because, you know, Schubert started going to more foreign keys because he could use the ostinato and either the rhythm of it or something, so that you like know what's going on as a listener, and then be in this wild, crazy key that you had never experienced before. So and sort of, you know, you want to keep one thing constant, so the other thing can be. That's
absolutely true, and I'm very mindful of that.
Yeah.
The other thing it allows me to do is to rhythmate the words, you know, in ways that are not necessarily bound by the beat.
Yeah.
You know, because we have the ostinato going on, so I can be free and hold a note and move with the note, and the ostinato keeps you feeling that there's a pulse.
Yeah, and I think you know, one of the reasons why I paired Donald Oge with those Duparc songs is Duparc has all these awesome, you know, he took that idea to its sort of like insane. Well, we'll have, you know, tons of, like, he'll have 5 on the piano part. He'll have like 5 different layers of rhythmic ostinato that are all happening simultaneously, and that's how it creates the lushness of texture. Yeah. And you know, and I found that especially happened in Donald Oge with the 4-note figure in the 6/8.
Yes.
So, and that's one of you know, Duparc's favorite tricks is have 4-note repeating figures in something like 6/8 or 3/4, so that they're not matching up with the beat.
Yes. Yes.
And they create new harmonies because when certain of the notes are falling on certain it's the same harmony, but when it's falling on different beats,
Yeah.
it changes like a kaleidoscope effect.
Yeah.
It's the same colors and they just keep changing
Yeah,
the
yeah, it does.
relationship to each other.
Yeah,
It's
it
really
does, yeah.
effective.
It's a wonderful, I mean, it's a great compositional device.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very. Yeah, so I think because I have to go play a concert, I'm gonna stop it there. But thank you so much for sitting down with us.
It's my pleasure.
And really look forward to playing the concert
Oh.
in just a couple hours. You should check out BrooklynArtSongSociety.com, or you should like us on Facebook, or you should follow us on Twitter at Brooklyn Art Song. We have, after this concert, which you will be very sad that you have missed, we have one more, our season finale, on Tuesday, May 21st at Galapagos Art Space in Dumbo at 8 p.m. It is the world premiere of our first commissioned piece entitled Quagmires and the Known Knowns by Marie Incontura. It's really a great, great piece. It's all texts surrounding the Iraq War, text by Barack Obama, Saddam Hussein, Donald Rumsfeld, George W. Bush, John Kerry, certain documents from the UN, and it's really a really interesting and incredible piece of music, and I'm really happy that it's our first commission. Until next time, this has been Song and Water. Thanks.
Bye.